PK Kemsley doubles down on horrible email to Dorit Kemsley. After months of heated tension on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Season 14, Dorit Kemsley and Paul PK Kemsley are finally coming face to face. However, the estranged couple still don't see eye to eye on a number of issues. One point of contention: PK's email to Dorit regarding the status of their marriage, finances, and custody. In the above preview for The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Season 14, Episode 15, Dorit notes that something shifted in her estranged husband, and PK gets right to the point about the first time things started to go wrong. According to him, Dorit's handling of their living arrangements particularly struck a nerve. "One of the significant issues in our marriage were your control issues," PK tells Dorit. "And less than a few weeks in, you're dictating where I'm gonna live. And that's in the backdrop of me knowing that you're in our house, and I'm taking this really small apartment, which was, in my life, as humble as it's ever been. And it felt like an approval process that I didn't want to go through." After Dorit contends that they never actually had the conversation about the apartment, PK replies that he didn't want to have the conversation, landing them at a stalemate over who was making the right point. "We clearly have different views, but what I would like to know is what prompted that long email that knocked me off my feet," Dorit says. Asking if she really wants to start discussing only part of that email, PK adds, "It was a summary of how you made me feel, and what life will potentially look like if we don't resolve this." What did PK Kemsley say in his email to Dorit? Earlier in the season, Dorit had referred to PK's email as everything from an angry, horrible note to a 9-page barrage. Though she didn't go into detail about her estranged husband's feelings, the rhobh cast member primarily detailed threats about money and how she would be the one liable to pay for certain things. "It was predominantly financials," she said in an Episode 10 confessional. "His expectations were within a month or two that I will be responsible for the mortgage and all the bills associated with the house. There was also discussion of custody, lawyers, and threats of, if this doesn't happen, I will be proceeding with divorce." During the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills after show, Dorit claimed she had never received a threatening email like that ever from PK. "I have received bitter, threatening, in the heat of the moment texts and emails when we fought, but never like this," she explained. "Finances? We've had conversations about it. Custody? No, never these kinds of threats." Are Dorit and PK divorced? To date, neither Dorit nor PK have filed for divorce. "PK and I are navigating this. It's like our marriage, up and down. I'd like to see things a little bit more status quo, stable, calm, consistent," Dorit shared during a January appearance on the Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen after show. "And I think that then we could at least start to heal or make decisions or whatever it is. But calm heads prevail, so we'll see. We're getting there." PK Kemsley doubles down on horrible email to Dorit Kemsley, a tale of tensions and truths. As the sun set over Beverly Hills, casting its golden glow over the sprawling estates and winding roads, the city that was home to many of the world's richest and most glamorous residents buzzed with drama. It was a drama that was particularly close to the hearts of the fans of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, rhobh, a show where luxury meets vulnerability, and secrets are just as shiny as the diamond-studded necklaces the cast members often wear. In the midst of all this, the relationship between Dorit Kemsley and her husband, Paul PK Kemsley, had become a key storyline in Season 14. Once a picture of wealth and stability, their marriage now appeared on the rocks, as years of unresolved issues, simmering tensions, and public altercations finally came to a head. For months, viewers watched as the couple, whose lavish lifestyle and opulent events had once made them the envy of many, seemed to crumble under the weight of their own personal struggles. But nothing quite shook the foundation of their marriage as much as the infamous email PK sent to Dorit. It was a moment that fans were waiting for, an email that, according to Dorit, was nothing short of a horrible and bitter communication. In that email, PK laid bare his frustrations, his anger, and his disillusionment with their marriage, leading to a flurry of emotions between the two. The email was a symbol of everything that had gone wrong in their relationship and served as a precursor to their increasingly hostile interactions on screen. As tensions reached their boiling point in episode 15, PK and Dorit found themselves face to face, locked in a battle of words, each trying to defend their side of the story. The moment felt almost inevitable, a reckoning in their marriage that had long been brewing. It was in this emotional confrontation that PK finally spoke out about the email, addressing Dorit's claims head-on, doubling down on what he had written. "Do you really want to get into that email?" PK asked, his voice calm but firm. "You know, it was just the truth. A summary of how I felt, and what things could look like if we didn't find a way to fix what had gone wrong." Dorit, clearly taken aback by PK's unyielding tone, replied, "You're saying that was the truth. You know, I never thought we could ever reach this point. I never thought you would ever send something like that to me." P's gaze hardened, his stance unwavering as he recounted his version of events. "It was a reflection of how I felt, Dorit. It's not about being vindictive. It's about seeing things for what they are. And I told you, I didn't want to have that conversation in person. I didn't want to be in the position where I had to explain myself or beg for understanding. You've always had control of everything. From the moment we started living apart, I felt like I was constantly jumping through hoops to prove myself to you." Dorit's face softened, though a trace of hurt lingered in her eyes. "I didn't know you felt that way. I never intended to make you feel like you were beneath me. I thought we were just navigating our new reality." PK scoffed, shaking his head. "New reality? Dorit, there's a difference between reality and a facade. And the reality is, you were already living in the house while I was stuck in a tiny apartment. I felt like I was being treated like a stranger in my own life, a life we built together." There was a pause, a pregnant silence that hung in the air, thick with unresolved tension. Dorit's eyes filled with emotion, and she finally spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "But the email, PK, the way you spoke to me, it was more than just your feelings. It felt like you were giving me ultimatums, threatening me, especially with the finances. You talked about the mortgage, the bills, the custody of the kids. It was overwhelming." PK's face grew dark. "That's because I had no choice but to look at the reality of our situation. You're right. We never had a direct conversation about how this marriage was going to look if we didn't fix things. And all I was doing was laying out the facts of what would happen if we couldn't make it work. I'm not going to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. We both know that." Dorit shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "You think I don't know that? I've been doing everything I can to keep this family together. But I never, ever expected to be treated like that in that email. It wasn't just about finances. It was about everything. And I've never felt so alone." For a moment, the argument quieted, the weight of Dorit's words hanging between them like an unspoken truth. PK softened, though his anger still simmered beneath the surface. "I didn't want to hurt you, Dorit. But the reality is, if things don't change, we could lose everything. Our home, our children's future. I didn't know how else to say it." "But that's the problem, PK," Dorit replied, her voice steady but filled with pain. "You always make it about the worst-case scenario. You don't ever allow room for healing. You don't see that I'm trying to make things work, too." PK's eyes flickered with guilt, but he quickly masked it with a defensive posture. "I don't want a life of pretending, Dorit. I'm not going to sit here and lie to myself about what's going on between us. That email was my way of being real with you." The room was thick with the remnants of their argument, both of them trying to navigate the murky waters of their strained relationship. It was clear that both Dorit and PK had been hurt by each other in ways that words could hardly capture. What had started as a seemingly simple conversation about an email had transformed into a deep dive into the unraveling of their marriage. In the weeks following their explosive confrontation, Dorit and PK's dynamic on rhobh only grew more complicated. The tension that had been building over months now exploded into full view for the world to witness. Yet, despite the public nature of their disputes, both seemed unwilling to let go completely. The email, as bitter as it was, had not been a final blow to their relationship, but rather another chapter in their ongoing saga of love, loss, and reconciliation.